Big time fight coming up this weekend. We have the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis, making his 9th main event walk with the UFC and his 4th in a row, taking on the former Philly police officer. It is, of course, Chris Daukaus, and it seems like he's taken a little bit of a sabbatical. I think it was before his last fight to get fully entrenched in MMA. And when this guy is on, holy smokes, is he ever on? You look at his last 5 fights. CFFC over Danny Holmes, then Parker Porter, then Rodrigo Nascimento, Alexei Oleinik, Shamil Durkimov. All of these wins by knockout. This guy is a knockout machine. And I thought, and I was wrong, I thought Chris Daukaus, from the time he came into the UFC to his last fight where he weighed 231 pounds, I thought the move is imminent. He's going to make the move down to 205 pounds. Now he's taking on one of the biggest heavyweights in the UFC in Derrick Lewis. And you talk about power punching. This is such a treat for the fans, this main event.
This could be a phenomenal fight. And it's almost the perfect fight because you have the guy who's been around the top of the division for a long time. He's had some setbacks. He's had some big wins. But we don't really know where the career of Derrick Lewis is right now. And he's being matched up with, I'd argue, him and Tom Aspinall, one of the most exciting young prospects in the division, getting the biggest opportunity of his career. Like, I really do think these are the fights that people get excited for. The crossroads is a little overused, but you get the idea. This is a crossroads fight. If Daukaus wins this, then we're off. It's nothing but main events, title shots, stuff like that for the next 5, 10
Blades
years.
Fights.
Unfortunately, probably that. And for Derrick Lewis, we don't really know. Like, if he loses this, you don't want to throw out the B word, Bellator, but we've seen him in there with a lot of those top-level guys in the UFC, so you don't really know where he is in his career. But I think this is such a fun fight, and for especially 2 of the reasons you had said. Derrick Lewis is as big of a heavyweight as you could possibly get, and for Chris Daukaus, he subscribes to a very different mindset. It's that speed does beat power, and that's why this fight's so much fun. We're finally going to see what is the best weight or size for the heavyweight division. Is it better to sort of be that smaller 230 to 240 up to 45 range, I'll say, so you're a little bit more mobile. You might not have the one-hitter quitter power, but you can put your skills together a little bit more, or is it better to just be that one big massive fighter who might be a little bit more limited with their skills, but then go in there and get that one-hitter quitter? That's what this fight is all about, and both guys have been susceptible to their opponent's strength in the past. I know you've talked about it a lot, Chris Daukaus' knockout losses, and he does have some bad ones on there, and even against Shamil Abdurakhimov, it's great to look at the highlight reel win when guys do win via highlight reel KOs, but you also kind of have to talk about how the fight got to that point. Daukaus did eat some pretty big shots against Shamil, and listen, Shamil's no world beater on the feet by any means, so it does worry you a little bit. If you look at the success Abdurakhimov had, at least early on in that fight, you can see how Derrick Lewis could be able to go out there and get, what, his 21st professional knockout win?
Well, the thing that scared me with Daukaus coming into the UFC, he was 2-2 to start his pro career. He got finished by Sean Teed by Americana. Now, they were supposed to run that back before Daukaus got his UFC call, and then he lost to your Danny Hernandez Figueroa back in 2014 by knockout. He strings off some wins. He fights for the CFFC title at CFFC 73 back in 2019. Has a very strong first round, and then Zhu Anyanwu, who's in the UFC, who's in Bellator, finishes him, and it was a brutal knockout loss. So for Daukaus, he takes about 6 months off. He finishes Danny Holmes. Again, he's supposed to fight Sean Teed a couple of different times. And then he gets the call to fight Parker Porter. And I looked at that fight, and I was wrong, but I looked at that fight as, okay, Daukaus is a guy that can get it done with his length. He's got pop at the end of his shots, but he's a bit of a light heavyweight, you know, lighter heavyweight, and then realistically he goes in there and looks great against Parker Porter. He looks great against the submission artist of Rodrigo Nascimento, finishes him in 45 seconds. He fights Alexei Oleinik. Okay, Oleinik's a little long in the tooth, but you know, you're not going to finish him quick. Oh yeah, no, he finished him quick. And then he's booked against Shamil a couple of different times, fights him back in September, and finishes him in the second round, right cross, and then by ground and pound. So you love to see that out of him. For Derrick Lewis, again, you know exactly what it is. So what I want to do, Matt, I'm going to throw it on over to the community tab because I threw this out there about 12 hours ago. I said, full card video on the way Tuesday, but first we need to know who's taking the main event. And right now, out of 814 total votes, 53% with Derrick Lewis. And out of the commenters, not a lot this week. We got to hear from you. Come on. This is your part to be a part of the show. We're going to do our best to get to the comments actually below this video, but Akash Deep, he's rolling in the deep. He's out there every week saying, gonna be a wild fight, gonna have to ride with the Lewis Think Daukaus is super skilled, though. Should be great. Tyler Ferreira. I don't know, Tyler, how you pronounce your last name, so you let me know. But the pressure is going to be really tough for Derrick. I like Daukaus in this, especially with the odds. We have Ishin saying Daukaus wins if he doesn't get caught. And then there's a couple of replies, well, that's every Lewis fight. And then Sneakers is saying Daukaus, he's going to be able to get the win. So, Matt, when I look at this one, there's a lot of Daukaus support in the comments, albeit there's not a lot of comments. However, the votes have Lewis. Are you surprised by that?
I really am, because I don't think Chris Daukaus is really getting the respect he deserves with his grappling, because everybody's looking at this fight just assuming that Daukaus is going to go in there, throw some boxing combinations, and hey, if his speed wins out, maybe he drops Lewis early, and maybe he can win via ground and pound. We forget about how good Daukaus is on the mat, though, and I know he hasn't been able to fully express that in the cage yet, but it's not just the fact that he trains, or his brother is very good at jiu-jitsu. This is a guy who trains at Martinez BJJ primarily, and he is phenomenal on the mat too, to the point where I really do worry about Derrick Lewis and his defensive grappling. I'm not the only person in the world. I'm sure everybody who's ever broken down Derrick Lewis's career has worried that, because he has that just get up. And yeah, that's really, really good. But it's also really, really bad when you're fighting somebody who can take your back on those get-ups, who can try to be a little bit more dynamic than just kind of letting you get up to your feet. Because this is one of those fights where, is Daukaus the better wrestler? Definitely. Is he the better jiu-jitsu practitioner? Without a doubt in my mind. Is he faster on the feet? Does he have better hand speed? And possibly power per pound? Maybe he has all those things going for him, albeit the last one is very controversial. I still think he can get flatlined bad in this fight, and it's just because of the Derrick Lewis effect, where every fight Derrick Lewis has ever fought in, we talk about, hey, he's not as good of a wrestler. He has worse cardio than his opponent.
Oh, he's probably got better cardio than most of his opponents.
He does, but it's sneaky, because he doesn't fight with a sustained output. He's someone who will just rely on that one big shot, and the one big shot can land in the first round, it can land in the 5th round. And I guess before I give my prediction, I'll hand it off to you. Do you think the championship rounds will matter in this fight, or will we get there in the first place? Because if it does, I don't know if it's going to be a massive advantage for Lewis, but I do know he's been there before.
Yeah, I mean, this is his 4th main event in a row. It's his 9th main event in the UFC. We happened to see him at one. It was the first event we ever went to.
They rarely go the distance, though. That's why I'm asking if that 4th and 5th round will be important.
True enough, and I mean, for Daukaus, the same thing can be said. I mean, it's been a lot of first-round finishes. The fight against Zhu Wu was back a couple of years ago. That was his last 5-round fight. So, main event experience, not necessarily, it's not there as much for Daukaus as it is for Lewis. And the same thing, again, Daukaus is one of those guys that can throw good volume, throw good power. He's reserved enough, and it's weird to say that where they end in the first round, but he picks his shots. He's got that Jeff Neal to him where he knows exactly when they need to be thrown. And Jeff Neal, I gotta say this.
Good job.
Whether you thought he won or Ponzinibbio won, it doesn't matter because Jeff Neal fought that Neal fight his last time out. He was reserved. He picked his shots. I love that fight out of Jeff Neal. Daukaus can do that, but he knows when to pour it on. So, again, it might sound a little odd for me to say that where they end in the first round, but I love to see that out of Daukaus, knowing exactly when and where and how to place those shots. But against Lewis, you have to throw all that knowledge out of the kitchen sink.
You really do, and I hate saying this in the prediction where we pride ourselves on, being educated on the subject, but like, with Derrick Lewis, numbers don't matter, who he's fighting doesn't matter, weight classes barely matter with Lewis. Like, he could probably knock out Brock Lesnar on one night and lose to Brandon Moreno the next by decision. That's how weird Derrick Lewis is with his MMA career. I really worry about Lewis if he ever is in a sustained grappling position with a guy like Chris Daukaus, because we saw
it against Oleinik.
I know, but it was almost like his size physically prevented him from getting in some of those positions. I know that's something to laugh at, but go and watch that fight. Oleinik has him in a choke, and Lewis just kind of sits in it because his arm's big enough to not pressure him.
But he's 30-some-odd pounds heavier.
I understand with all this, but think back about when he fought Derrick Lewis, or Daniel Cormier. DC took his back like it was nothing, though, and choked him out. I worry about Lewis's defense when he just gets up against guys who can take the back. Because again, when you're just getting up to your feet and you're not paying attention to the finer intricacies of grappling, those top-level grapplers are going to find a hole in it. And I know Oleinik wasn't able to, but Oleinik's 45 years old. Athletically, he's not the same guy he used to be. And I could see a world where, I know it's not the most likely of finishes. I'm not sure what the prop is, but I could see Chris Daukaus winning this fight by submission.
Chris Daukaus' significant strikes per minute.
Goodness.
And there's only 4 fights, so 5 gets you into the record book, so to speak. 9.03 given to 3.4 taken at a 53% striking accuracy clip and 64% defense. For Derrick Lewis, 2.49 given to 2.48 taken, 50% accuracy to 41% clip. Those numbers, level of competition, Derrick Lewis has fought the best of the best for the longest time. For Chris Daukaus, it's been a quick, slow burn, if you will. A year and 3 months ago, he's fighting Parker Porter. 2 months and 2 weeks ago, he's fighting Abdurakhimov. 2 months and 2 weeks doesn't get you ready for 5 rounds either. So I'm worried about this one for Daukaus. If it gets past the second round, that one favors Derrick Lewis off the bat. I think he has, again, that sneaky heavyweight cardio where he's reserved enough and he can work his power. You look at the odds for this one. Chris Daukaus, your 7th ranked heavyweight, is the favorite coming into this fight. Open a -160 is a -140. Derrick Lewis, your 3rd ranked heavyweight, open a +140 is a +116. Coming off a title fight, albeit interim, in his hometown against Cyril Gane.
Did he land a punch, though?
Yeah, he did not have his best showing against Cyril Gane. I'll bring you the numbers just because, hey, we're in a position to do this. So for Derrick Lewis against Cyril Gane, the strikes, significant, 98-16. Total strikes, 112-16, favoring Gane in that fight. So again, it was not a good showing. He had a performance bonus against Curtis Blades. He's had fight of the night against, Junior Dos Santos, performance against Volkov. I can go through the bonuses. You know the drill with Derrick Lewis. He is kill or be killed. The Topology votes for this one, surprise us there to you, Matt. You've had a rough go with these.
Can I set them then?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Lewis is going to be the favorite 60-40.
I'm going to say under. I'm going to say Daukaus. Look at that. I was under, though. So, 964 total votes on Topology. 54% Lewis, 89% by knockout. For the 46% that have Daukaus, 86% by knockout. The fans favoring a knockout. The fans at Fight Night Picks were 1 percentage point different. It was 54% Topology, Lewis, 53% Fight Night Picks with Lewis. So, the fans ever so slightly have Lewis, Matt. And we can talk about Lewis for some more. We've talked enough about this fight, I think. We have a big time card coming up this weekend. Let's get to the point. Who are you picking here?
Okay, Derrick Lewis can win any fight he's ever in just because of how he is and his knockout ability and his ability to carry his own power late. I think Daukaus is unique, though, with this ability. I think he's going to crowd Derrick Lewis's power a little bit too much. I don't think he's going to fight at the range to where Lewis is going to be comfortable getting those big long-range hooks off at. I actually think Daukaus is going to keep it a lot more on the inside, force this to become more of a fight about sort of the technique and less about just the power. And I know that's obvious to say. He's the smaller guy. He kind of has to do that. But when Daukaus is at his best is when he has some of those pitter-patter shots on the inside, using his footwork, because he's not someone who just is a smaller heavyweight. He's a smaller heavyweight by design. Like, he's thought about all of this throughout his career because he could walk around at 250 and just be a heavyweight at 250 pounds, but he prefers to fight at a lighter weight, and I do think we're finally going to start to see that pay off. I think he's going to be able to get it done. Now, could he get a big shot from Derrick Lewis and get knocked out? Of course he could. That happens to people all the time. But I think Daukaus will be able to stay steady enough early on to not allow Lewis to get his reads for any of his big shots later. And I think we could even see a Chris Daukaus finish around round 2 or 3.
Chris Daukaus just beat a 40-year-old Shamil Abdurakhimov. Before that, he beat Alexei Oleinik. Last I checked, Alexei Oleinik was 43 in that fight. He beat Rodrigo Nascimento.
Okay, Derrick Lewis has a split decision over Ilir Latifi as one of his last wins.
Hey, man, I'm just telling you the numbers.
I'm just saying, if we want to pick.
I'm just saying what's out there. I like Derrick Lewis. You talk about those short notice entries, that's where Derrick Lewis can definitely capitalize. And listen, this is one of those ones, I love Chris Daukaus for his speed, the power on the end of his shots, the finishing abilities early, the grappling that nobody talks about at a Martinez BJJ. You just think Kyle's the grappler? Chris has got that too. There's so many things that I love about Chris Daukaus and his game. It's a huge step up from a Shamil Abdurakhimov that not only was 40, but was 40 and had been off for a long, long time. So for me, I like Lewis, the activity. He's one of those guys that when it's not going his way, it looks really bad like it did against Cyril Gane. So I do worry about it that way. But again, at a plus 120, I got to go with Derrick Lewis here. I like the experience out of him, especially in 5-round fights, getting ready for them. This being his 4th in a row. I'm going Lewis here.
I can't disagree with anything you said. I just think at 36, almost 37, with the amount of damage he's taken, and with the injuries too, like he's had a messed up back, he tore his ACL against JDS, like he's had quite a few injuries throughout his career too, so I do worry about that starting to catch up with him, but I think this is going to be a phenomenal heavyweight fight, and this is the good thing too. If Daukaus is able to get this win, think about all the new fresh heavyweight matchups that we have to look forward to on the horizon, and if Derrick Lewis gets another knockout win, he's just adding to his own record. It's like watching Steph Curry hit 3, so we're going to see see something great this Saturday, no matter what.
Absolutely amazing fight. We're different on picks. We've got quite a few underdogs on this one. Listen, it's all going to be decided here. Ooh. The prediction MVP trophy will be handed out at our year-end awards, and you got to be catching those before, well, the year is out. We'll have those with our own John Franklin. But Matt, I absolutely love this card. Coming up this weekend, you know it, you love it. Question mark kicks 2 hours before the prelims. We get the hindsight of the weigh-ins in the week that was. Sometimes Priscilla Cachoeira misses weight, and Matt picks her, well, at the start of the week, and then switches over to Jillian Robertson. You never know what could happen, and if you're missing that show, you should definitely check it out. Let us know who you have down below in the comments section, not just for this fight, but for the rest of the fights on this card. I absolutely love this card. It's getting me so primed and ready to finish off a great year. So you keep it locked in with Fight Night picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.